Hey, welcome to another installment of Celebrity Profiles here on Live from Dennis's House. Today we're going to be talking to Pamela DeBar. She was born Pamela Miller in California, and she went on to be the most famous groupie of all time. She wrote the book I'm With the Band, which chronicled her life in LA and London and everywhere else. And, she was just a huge music fan, and she loved musicians. So she ended up as girlfriends to some of the most, the biggest names you can imagine, rock royalty, if you will. She was with Jimmy Page, Mick Jagger, Keith Moon, you name it. And she was married to Michael DeBar. And then before that, she was taken under the wings of the Zappas. So Frank Zappa took her under the wing, and she ended up working as the nanny for the Zappas, for the kids, Dweezil and Moon. And then Zappa formed the band GTOs with her in it and the other groupies, Girls Together Outrageously. And when I say groupie, I don't take that as a bad word. It's just, like I said, she was a young girl who loved musicians and just became their girlfriends, just like other girls date, other guys. They date musicians, and then, she wrote this book, and she was everywhere during the 60s and 70s. It was just an amazing life. And, she did everything and went everywhere, saw everything. And, she had a nice career out of that. She became an actress, author. She's still out there writing books and doing a lot of stuff. So, we're just going to play some music, and we're going to talk to Pamela, find out what she's been up to and what she's up to right now, and, circle back and talk a little bit about her past life. So let's start off the show with some music, of course. We're going to do Straight Cat Blues by the Rolling Stones, of course, and then we're going to play I'm Free by The Who, and then we're going to have our interview with Pamela DeBar. On the phone with us is Pamela DeBar. Now, Pamela, I want to talk about what you are up to today, but I want to circle back. I want to start from the beginning. And, I noticed the one thing I took away from your book, I'm With the Band, is that you're a huge fan of music. So how did you get this? How did you get this love of music? And who were your first idols before the Beatles?
Elvis. Elvis, it's a long story, and it's in I'm With the Band, but I got my first Elvis record when I was 8 years old, 9 maybe, and it was Jailhouse Rock, and on the other side of it was Treat Me Nice, which really was a life-changing record for me. I played it over and over and over again until my mom just said, "Would you just stop it?" And I was listening to the words, and Elvis was telling me to treat him nice. And he was telling me how to treat him nice. And I really paid attention to
that. So then you just, once the Beatles came, though, that must have been life-changing as well.
Well, before that, it was Dion.
Oh, yeah?
After Elvis, I got really hooked on Dion when he went solo with Runaround Sue.
Okay.
And The Wanderer and all that. And I used to come home, from school to watch American Bandstand. And he was on there, often, and I would just swoon, And later, I thought I actually had very good taste in music because he was one of the only pop idols back then who wrote his own songs,
Right.
And he's still at it. He is so incredible. I never miss him. I still will drive miles. I'll fly. I'll do anything to see Dion play. So my heroes are lasting, and I did get to see Elvis play a couple times. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, then I had Beatlemania. Very seriously, I was just the right age. I was 14 when they hit the shores here, and it was perfect. So I got to see them play 3 times. I eventually met all of them too. So. I am a diehard Beatles fan.
Wow. Now, you want to talk about, because I remember your first concert was seeing the Beatles. What was that like?
Yeah, my very first concert. Well, I was, if you're a kid, you really don't know what to expect in a live show, but all I cared about was if Paul was going to see me, That's all I cared about. And I had good seats, and I could swear that he saw me. and we looked at each other. In fact, I wrote a piece on that in my newest book, Let It Bleed.
Okay.
How to Write a Rockin' Memoir. I wrote some things for those in that book too. So that I tell that story in there about how I think people looked at me.
Yeah. So now you actually became part of the scene yourself. That everything that happened during the '60s and '70s, it seems you were there. It's kind of like the Forrest Gump. Whatever happened, you were there. And like the thing, I'm very interested in like the Sunset Strip, like during the mid '60s. Give us a little idea for those people who never experienced it. What was that like, and the riot that happened?
Well, it was a very magical time that's never going to come again. I mean, it was the Renaissance, rock Renaissance coming to life on the street. I mean, up and down the Sunset Strip, there were thousands of kids, thousands of teenagers, and in every club there was an amazing band playing. The Doors, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, Love, all the British bands would come in and play the whiskey. I actually saw Jimi Hendrix, The Who, and Led Zeppelin at the Whiskey A Go-Go, which no one can even believe today. It's such a small club. It holds about 250 people. But that type of band was playing there live, and you could just see them. And I was in an all-girl group back then, called the GTO, that Frank Zappa was handling and producing, and girls together outrageously. And so we were invited to everything. I never had to pay to get in anywhere. In fact, they wanted us there because we were so colorful and so well known around town. So I never missed anything.
Right, you were like the queen of the Sunset Strip.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned the GTOs and Frank Zappa, so I want to talk about that now. So you came out with one album, and I kind of think it was very underrated, and it's maybe it was ahead of its time. And
thank you. Yeah, it was spoken word. Really, a lot of it was spoken word.
Right.
Some of it we sang, if you can call it that, but it was spoken word way before that term even existed, and we were sort of performance artists before that term even existed. Frank just wanted to capture our crazy lives on vinyl, and he wanted to share it with the world. That's what he was very good at, was capturing moments, and turning people on to things that no one else would ever dream about,
Right. There's like a lot of crazy topics on there, too, that you couldn't get away with today either.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
You're probably talking about combs.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, combs was a hairdo. We were not talking, it was not a derogatory racial term at all. It was about the shape of a hairdo that these guys used to wear that looked like an ice cream cone.
Right.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with what you might imagine. We really liked the combs.
Yeah, I could tell that. Yeah, I didn't take it as a bad thing.
Because they were so colorful and interesting, and had a lot of nerve, and they wore the most amazing suits, and they would just try to pick us up,
Yeah.
And they broke these big, long cone things on the tops of their heads. It was fantastic. So, yeah, it was not disparaging at all.
No. Now, there's one song on there that I really like. It's Circular Circulation. Now, who's singing that one?
That was me.
Oh.
I actually the best voice. Not that it was that great, but I was really the best singer in the band.
Yeah,
that was the first single, believe it or not. Sandra wrote that. One of the other girls wrote the song, but Frank wanted me to sing it.
So you have a great voice. I think it's great, and that song is so catchy. Great melody to that, too. And
we had amazing musicians with us there.
Right.
It was co-produced. Frank Zappa and Lowell George was the co-producer. And then we had people just dropping in. We had the whole Jeff Beck group on the album.
Yes.
Including Stewart, who no one even knew who he was yet. And, it was fun. It was a serious thing. We thought, wow, we're really going to be big pop stars. But, of course, it was very far out for Frank Zappa, very, very far out. he coined the term freak and freak out and everything. So that was who he was. And so we were right up there with him, you know.
And so then what happened?
15-year-old.
So then, like, did you? I don't think you'd perform that much. And then what happened? The band just, I don't know what happened to them after that.
Well, he got to read out with the band for that, but the girl, I was not a big drug head, but some of the other girls in the band were, and Frank was complete teetotaler. He did not take drugs, so he broke up the band. He stopped paying us at that point when the girls got arrested and busted and went to jail. So that's how the band broke up. But then, you know, we kept on going for a while. At first, he wasn't even going to put the album out, but he really wanted to. It wasn't all of our fault, you know, that happened. So he got Sparky and I to come back into the studio and do those spoken word parts. And that's how the album got to be released.
Okay.
We did more work on it with him.
So now, go ahead.
It's considered quite a collector's item now if you can even find it.
Right.
Cost about $250 if you can find it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
awesome.
Cool.
So now tell us what, like, because you actually ended up being the babysitter for Frank Zappa and Moon and Dweezil, and so what did these Zappas mean to you? What did Frank and Gail, you know, what did they mean to you?
Well, they were both my mentors. It wasn't just Frank, because Gail, I always revered the people who married these guys and who wound up with them and who had families with them. Because that's what I wanted in life, you know, was to be with a man that I revered his music, and I could just be just like Gail. And so it was a real honor and a thrill to be able. I was the governess for years there. I lived at the house. I had my own guest house at the Zappa cabin and the Zappa house on Woodrow Wilson, and that's the house that Lady Gaga just bought.
Oh yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, I lost Gail, which of course was very devastating to me.
Yeah.
Lost Frank, and then I lost Gail. Yeah, those were the days, though.
Yeah. So now
I'll never forget them.
Now there's problems with the Zappa children. Can't you step in and work this out with them? Tell them what to do?
No, I can't. You know, that's their business. They're adults now. They're going to go through what they're going to go through, and you know, it's very sad how it's all turned out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? What's going on now?
Yeah, with the music, with Dweezil and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah, it's very sad. So, all right, so let's go back again, talk a little more about the L.A. scene there, because you were at Haight-Ashbury, you were at Monterey. You were at Monterey as well, right? The concert?
No, I didn't go to Monterey.
Okay.
Murph went. One of the other GTOs went to Monterey. I could have gone, but I was so involved with the Flying Burrito Brothers at the time that they were actually the Birds at that point. I just couldn't miss a gig here in LA. You know, when I become obsessed with a band, very serious.
Yeah.
But I was at Altamont with the Stones.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that.
Well, all those stories are in on with the band, and it's been out 30 years this year, and it's still in print, which is pretty incredible. And I just finished my 5th book. So I've got a lot of stuff out there people can read about what I've done and who I've been with and what I'm doing. I do rock and roll tours of Laurel Canyon and Hollywood still to this day, and people love it. I do them about once a week, probably once a month, and I take groups of people around to the sites where I did a lot of this amazing stuff and where I was with these incredible people and stories, you know, I read out of them with the band. And Altamont, okay, you want to go back to Altamont? It was very difficult. That was sort of the shift. That and the Charles Manson thing was sort of the shift in the free love, the peace and love feel in the air. You know, I went, of course, to see the Burritos too. I was a big Burrito Brothers fan, but I wound up hanging out with them afterwards, and it was me and Michelle Phillips were the only girls there, and it was such a heady, difficult experience. Mick was talking about quitting the Stones and never performing again. I mean, it was a very devastating episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was there for the good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you just mentioned, during this time, of course, there's Manson running around L.A. too. Did you ever have a run-in with him? Because he was always on the Sunset Strip.
Absolutely not. He was a phony hippie. He was not a real hippie.
Yeah, he was taking advantage of the hippies, yeah.
He was a fraud. So I never ran into him. Thank goodness.
Thank God. Yeah, right. So you mentioned that you have more books, because I read I'm With the Band when it first came out, and I just perused it again this past weekend on the beach. And, it's a great, great book, great pictures in it and stuff. But you've written other books as well. You just mentioned Let It Bleed.
Yeah, Let It Bleed is my latest book. It's called Let It Bleed, How to Write a Rockin' Memoir, and that is teaching other people how to write their memoirs, because I think we all have a book in us. I think we all have a story to tell. And I teach women's writing workshops all over the world. I have them ongoing in L.A., and then I'm going to London next month to teach there, and I teach in New York and Chicago and Nashville and Seattle and Portland and Austin and, all over.
Wow.
My first one in Tulsa, and everything's on my website, PamelaDeBar.com, and I've just done many, many things. I continue to. I don't live in the past, I don't, even though I talk about the past, because it was such an incredibly fascinating time for people who didn't get to live through it.
Yeah.
Especially in the Hollywood area, in the rock and roll world, which was the rock and roll renaissance, really. So I take people on these tours, and I go to Jim Morrison's house and say, well, this is where, Jim and I got completely bombed, and I just tell this tales that people are fascinated with, because they can't believe that these people actually walked the earth.
Right.
They become so mythologized.
Yeah. So that sounds like an amazing tour. I want to do this myself. And is this a walking tour or driving or?
Well, no, I pick people up in a big van. And we go all over Hollywood and Laurel Canyon, stopping at the different places that I experienced a lot of different things. The Zappa house, the Jim Morrison house, the whiskey, all these different places where I lived and did various things, which is Led Zeppelin. They'd come over and work on songs, and we stop in front of these places, and I tell the stories of things that happened there. And anyway, there's a lot of different sites I take people to and tell the tale.
Wow, I would like. I'm definitely going to do
that. It's all day, and it's really, really fun. I'll answer any kind of questions anybody asks. And, it's just a really fun afternoon, all day.
All right.
My next one's Sunday.
Yeah, I'm in New York, so I can't make it by Sunday. But
oh, well.
Next time I'm in California, I'm definitely doing this. It's great. But
okay.
do you mind if I ask you a couple more stories, though? Like the ones that I found most interesting is that you were dating Jimmy Page at the time. Now, and that's one thing about the book, too, that a lot of people get that they mistake about the book, that it's all about sex and stuff. But you're like a young girl who's in love, really, that you fall in love.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
all about love. It was all about love. And I just wanted, to be in love with a musician that I admired.
Right. It's no different
than... Why
not? No different than any other girl, really. Girls want to be in love. You just happen to like musicians.
Yeah, and I was in the right place, right time, right look, right city, right everything,
Yeah, so... Because, what was that about, though? Because all these musicians, they fell in love with you, and they were fascinated with you. What do you think? Was that, because they could have all these different girls. Why were they infatuated with you, do you think?
Well, I don't know. You have to ask them.
Well, I have a theory about that, though. I have a theory that...
I think it has a lot to do with how you feel about them. I mean, how you feel about their music. Because a musician, actually all men, are very much about their work. more than most women. I'm not going to generalize, but as long as you appreciate what a man does and tell him and mean it and believe it and really truly feel those things, they want you around. You ask questions about it. You're very interested and care, and they do appreciate that. Of course, it has a lot to do if you're kind of cute. That can't hurt.
Yeah. And I think you epitomized America for a lot of these British musicians, that you had the California look, the American look, and I think that had something to do with it as well.
Yeah, that's true, too. I was a perfect California girl, blonde, back in those days. And, I wore very silk-like see-through vintage dresses and floated around, So,
yeah.
What's not to like?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think that there'll ever be? You mentioned that there probably won't, but do you think there'll ever be another scene like that ever again, or is music over? What's going on in the world now?
Well, I don't think there can be, because those musicians, in fact, they're still making more money than any modern musician. All the guys over 70 out on the road.
Right.
McCartney. Neil Young, the Eagles. I mean, it's endless, the amount of people that are still out there, the Who, out there doing what they do, and people go and it sells out because there's nothing like it now.
Right.
And people want a taste of that. And, the way the industry has changed, and also, there's very little access to backstage nowadays. And it's just the way it is. So these days seem so like impossible now for anyone to have actually done the things I have done, and I think that's part of the fascination, with it, because it can't be done now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the music like that is not going to be made again. Good music's being made, but it's mostly derivative. I think the most interesting person that's come along since Kurt Cobain, who I think was probably the last great frontman, is Jack White. And I think he still has a lot to do and say. And I think he's going to do it. His sound with the White Stripes is something completely different from anything else.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm waiting for that. I always wait for the next great, big, wonderful thing, and it's been a long time since.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm waiting with you. So the one thing that I thought was hysterical in the book was you're with Jimmy Page and he brings Led Zeppelin 2 over. It's like a advanced copy, and you guys are listening to this album. That is so amazing in itself, right there. You're listening to one of the greatest albums ever on a first copy of it. And then you didn't want to tell him that you didn't like the drum solo from Moby Dick, though. I thought that was hysterical because it's just women do not like drum solos. My wife is always, oh my God, it's a drum solo. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, we would actually go backstage. Robert and Jimmy and I and John Paul would go backstage and hang out for 20 minutes sometimes. We could tell when he was about ready to wind it up, and Jimmy would go back out and start the next round. But we'd sometimes spend 20 minutes backstage.
It was an amazing time. Oh, and one other thing, you were with Jimmy and you went to see Elvis. But
Jimmy and Robert.
They asked if you wanted to meet him, and they said no.
Jimmy said, no, thank you. I'll never forget it. He said, no, thank you.
What's up with that?
Incredibly elegant accent. Robert and I looked at each other like, what? And of course, Jimmy ran the show back then. So I didn't get to meet Elvis. I don't know, maybe he was jealous. He was afraid I run off with Elvis.
Right.
You never know.
So you mentioned that you met Dion, though. Were you, happy when you met him? Were you ever disappointed in any of your idols that you met?
Disappointed? I have never been disappointed. We're all human.
Right.
We're all human. I've never been disappointed. I certainly was not disappointed in Dion. He's one of the greatest people, singer, songwriter, gentleman in the world.
No, but I mean, no one was mean to you or like said, get out of here, anything like that.
No. I was wanted where I was. It was a very even exchange with these people, and it was groupie was not a bad word back then, and it's a very misunderstood, maligned word that I've been trying to redeem ever since then.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's no different than any other girl. You like musicians, and you love music, and you had an amazing life, and you're still doing it. Glad to see that.
I'm still doing it. Still having a lot of fun.
So are you, have you ever...
In fact, I'm on my way to a party right now for a really amazing singer-songwriter character called Swamp Dog.
Swamp Dog?
And Swamp Dog. Look him up. D-O-G-G. And John Gail is going to be performing, and various other musicians. So it just goes on and on. I'm one of the lucky ones.
Well, that's great. And, I wanted to thank you for taking time to talk to us here. And is there anything else that you didn't mention that you're currently doing?
Well, please check out my books. Go to my website. I have a clothing line, too, called Groupie U. And that is GroupieU, the letter U.com. I sell T-shirts with my image on it, and some of my sayings, and some vintage clothes, and really fun jewelry. So I have a lot of things going on.
Wow, awesome. All right, well, thank you, and I will see you in California on that tour coming soon.
Okay, I hope it's real soon. Thank you very much.
Bye, Pamela.
Bye-bye.
Hey, welcome back live from Dennis's house, 474 The Mix, Celebrity Profiles. That was our interview with Pamela DeBar. Very interesting, fascinating life. Go check out her tour, check out her Facebook page, check out her website. She's still writing. She's still doing a ton of stuff. She led a fascinating life, and there'll never be another time like it. It was the Renaissance period, if you ask me. So it's very sad that we'll never experience anything like that again. But, we just got to enjoy the memories that we have and talk to people who were there and find out what it was like and, read the books and listen to the music. So we're going to wrap this show up now, and we're going to go out with 20th Century Fox by The Doors and Going to California by Led Zeppelin, which I hear was actually written about Pamela, Miss Pamela. And then we're going to play the Artist of the Month. So thank you for joining us here on Live from Dennis's House, Celebrity Profiles, Pamela DeBar. This interview will be transcribed in Madhouse Magazine. See you next time.